Greetings all. So for this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be practicing being able to identify an acid, a base, a conjugate acid, and a conjugate base in an acid-base reaction, right? So this is pertaining to chapter 7 for my Chem 101 students. Oh, by the way, my nails are green because I did like green dye, so I'm not dirty or gross or anything. So sorry. I just realized how dirty they were. But this is green food dye. This is pertaining to chapter 7, and this is homework number 59, part B. So let's go ahead and dive into it, shall we? So it looks like, first off, let's do a couple little background things here. This is an equation that's at equilibrium, right? How do I know that? So this must be a weak acid or a weak base. Whichever one we determine this to be a weak acid or weak base. It's weak. Why? Because it's a double-headed arrow and not a single-headed arrow, correct? So, let's identify whether or not this is a weak acid or base. So, what does this compound end up doing from the left side to the right? From the left side to the right, its journey, what it does is it ends up losing a hydrogen and becoming this. So, since this loses hydrogen, H+, it loses an H+. What does that make it? Makes it an acid. So this is the acid of the problem. So the HSO4 is the acid. So that must make this the base. Let's double check. So H2O ends up looking like this, right? So if we're going this way, H2O picks up an H plus and then becomes H3O plus. So if H2O gains an H plus, it gains an H plus. And remember, another word for H plus is proton, right? So H2O gains an H plus and becomes H3O plus. So if you gain an H, you are a base. Now, remember the words conjugate acid and conjugate base only apply to things on the right. So this is where my conjugates will be. So what it means is pick this and figure out what it started out looking like. SO4 2-, we know that as sulfate. In the beginning, or if I were to go backwards to become this, what would I have to do? Gain an H, right? So backwards, gain an H, right? We would gain an H to go back. So then if you're gaining an H, what does that make you? That makes you a base. So it is a conjugate base. Sorry, that's an S. It's a conjugate base. So if we're going backwards, it's a conjugate base. How about H3O plus? To go back, to go this direction, what happens? To go from H3O plus to H2O, what do you have to do? You have to lose backwards, right? If we're going backwards, we lose an H plus, right? We're losing an H plus going this way. So what loses H pluses? Acids, right? So it's the conjugate acid. That's the H3O plus. I am about to make another video on identifying conjugate acids, conjugate bases, the pairs. So make sure that you can do this for the exam, be able to identify which is which. And another bonus is, yes, this is an acid in this equation, correct? But it's a weak acid because of this double-headed arrow. So all these things are things that you should be able to identify and tell me for the sake of an exam. Thanks.